I think.
Okay, so my... Tell me when you're ready.
If you two can
So my brothers, please, don't brothers. My brother's argument essentially boils down to this. Islamist movements in Libya are taking Africans and slaves, and it's the Europeans' fault. No, the fact of the matter is, it is Islamist movements who are funding their fight with one another by black African slaves. They are following the example of their prophet, who himself sold slaves, who himself practiced slavery. There is no basis within Islam to abandon the slave trade. The Christian faith, by comparison, challenges the powerful to be aware of their power and to honor and look after the poor and to take responsibility for their wealth. The Christian faith teaches that there is a danger in wealth that causes a man to forget God. We read in James chapter 5, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries which are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments have become moth-eaten. Your gold and your silver have rusted, and their rust will be a witness against you, and will consume your flesh like fire. It is in the last days that you have stored up your treasures. Behold, the pay of the laborers who mowed your fields, and which have been withheld by you, cries out against you. And the outcry of those who did the harvesting has reached the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. You have lived luxuriously on the earth and led a life of wanton pleasure. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and put to death the righteous man. He does not resist you." The Bible is condemning those who hold on to their riches whilst not caring for the poor. The instruction here in James is that the rich have a responsibility to those who are under them, to pay them fairly, to give them a secure life. Now, the Christian faith teaches that all men are made in the image of God. We believe that God gives everyone a dignity. It was for this reason that Christians abandoned the slave trade. That was the marshalling argument that they made. By comparison, we have in the Islamic world the example of Muhammad.
Just reference.
So,
Reference.
Sahih al-Muslim 3433 and 2150 in Abu Dawood. The Apostle of Allah sent a military expedition to Atwas on the occasion of the Battle of Hunayn. They met their enemy and fought with them. Then they defeated them and took them captives. Some of the companions of the Apostle of Allah were reluctant to have sex with those female captives in the presence of their husbands who were unbelievers. Sex in the presence of their husbands who were unbelievers. So Allah, the Exalted, sent down the Quranic verse, Surah 424. So Allah is permitting the Muslim community to rape female captives in the presence of their husbands. And this man is saying that my religion is exploitative. What then do you call this, unless you would call it a crime? If you have a conscience, use it. If your conscience tells you that Muhammad's example was despicable, then abandon Islam, forsake it, and come to an example that teaches responsibility with wealth and personal responsibility for your own conduct, as Christ taught the Christians and his apostles. Now, I would like my brother to comment on the evidence I've provided and for once to start quoting his evidence, not simply giving references, so that we can actually talk about what he's suggesting.
Okay, first of all, that last hadith you just gave is a poor translation. If anyone actually wants to go and have a look at what it means, you can. I'm not going to waste my time because you guys can go look at it. I know Christians make up hadiths and use poor translations to put their thing across, so it doesn't really bother me. Now, if anyone actually wants to see what I was saying is the truth, you can just Google Italy paying Libyans. Yeah, Italy paying Libyans, okay, and it'll give you all of the thing of how Italy is helping is paying the Libyans to grab black Africans and not let them go across. Now here we go. So here we go. Now if we come to why did so many Christians support slavery, we can again see that the Bible has allowed it. And when he says Prophet Muhammad said, "Oh, take the slaves, take that slaves," we Muslims do not deny it. But you see, slavery in Islam is like akin to, you have to respect the person, you have to look after the person, you cannot beat that person, you cannot starve that person. It's not like slavery in Christianity, where you are allowed to beat that person within an inch of his life. And as long as that slave can get up the next day and has not died, it is not a sin upon you. Whereas we know in Islam, that if you beat your slave, if you abuse that person, you are going to be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're going to go to Jahannam for that. Whereas in Christianity, you are going to get a reward. If you beat your slave, if you abuse your slave, the Christian God is going to give you a reward. We know that in Christianity, rape is allowed. If you get raped in the countryside, it's okay, you're not allowed to be murdered. But if you get raped in the city, then in Christianity you are murdered. Why is this? If a woman is raped in the countryside in Christianity, she's not going to be punished for it. But if she's raped in the city, she is going to be punished for it. Why? Because Christianity says people in the, Christians in the countryside cannot control their urges, and so they rape women. It's fine. The Christians are okay with rape of women as long as it's in the countryside. If you're a Christian and you want to rape a woman, go and do it in the countryside. Christianity allows it. Alright, so don't worry about any of that stuff, whatever. It's all good, okay? It's true though, you can look it up. It's all in the Bible. And, I don't give references so much because I was seriously ill a long time ago and my memory's not as good as it used to be. So I can't bother with remembering numbers. This guy, he likes to remember references and numbers, etc. like that. I don't. I ain't got time for that stuff. You guys can listen. Okay? So, here we go. What else do we want to know? What else do you guys... Oh yeah, why is Christianity destroying the world? That was our main topic, so let's bring it back to that topic. We know that Christianity has allowed people to be robbed and exploited. He said Christians taught people this and taught people that. Oh, the Christians created the first universities, this, that. No, they didn't. The first university was created by a Muslim woman. What I mean, a Muslim woman created the first university, not no Christian. Christianity, being educated is a sin. That is why Christians are happy to be Christians. They don't want to be educated. As soon as you can become educated, you become a Muslim. And as soon as you look at it honestly and without any sort of prejudice or any sort of lies, or if you stop making up lies like Christians do, a good Christian story is this. And this is going to teach you all you need to know about Christian missionaries. In Africa, where my family is from, well, even though we're not black Africa, but we're from there. Okay, when missionaries come there, what they do is they get children and they take these children on a trip. And when they're returning, the missionaries say the car has broken down. And then they tell the children, pray to your God. And the children, they pray to their God, and nothing happens. And then the Christian missionaries, they say, let's pray to Jesus now. And so when the children pray to Jesus, the missionaries start the car and say, hallelujah, the car started. And this is a typical Christian missionary tactic, lies and deception. That is exactly what our brother here does. He lies and he deceives. Why? because no one can explain which God is the Christian God. Is Jesus the God, or is God the God, or is the Holy Spirit the God? And because no Christian can ever explain this, they have to lie and deceive and slander Muslims and Islam. If Islam was not true, why are more educated women in the West becoming Muslim? Why are they? Why are they? Why are they leaving Christianity and atheism and agnosticism and becoming Muslim if Islam is not true? Why are they leaving this religion that teaches you to worship a white man? Why are they leaving this white man religion? That's why are they leaving it? I just leave that to you. In England, you could rape your wife 20 years ago. It was legal to rape your wife. Why? Because it's Christian ideology. Islam, you cannot do that. I know some people may try and twist things, but it doesn't really matter because Muslims know the truth.
Okay, so again, I get it. Shall we do one more round?
Nah.
Okay, okay, one more round. So he tried to say that Christians abuse the poor and we don't have a care for the poor. Notice he's not provided any references, and when I challenged him to, don't interrupt. When I challenged him to, he said, oh, I can't be bothered with that, I got bad memory, blah, 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 blah. Now, I asked him to deal with the evidence that I provided, and his only response was to say it was a bad translation. Unfortunately for him, the translation that I used was by an Arab Muslim. Yes, so if he's saying it's a bad translation, let him bring forward a better one and explain to me why the Arab Muslim made the bad translation that talked about raping a female captive. His example, his moral paradigm. Now, by contrast, Christians have this paradigm. Speaking of the Christians, in Acts chapter 4, and the congregation of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and not one of them claimed anything belonging to him, which was his own. But all things were common property to them, and with great power the apostles were giving testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ, and abundant grace was upon them all. For there was not a needy person among them. Did you hear that? There was not a needy person among them, for all who were owners of land or houses would sell them and bring the proceeds of the sales and lay them at the apostles' feet, and they would be distributed to each as any had need. This is the paradigm of the Christians. This is why it is in Western Europe and in Christian civilizations that the most people have been lifted out of poverty. It is no surprise that it is the Christian faith that has produced the most charities, working and helping not just our own people, but everyone else as well. Virtually every major charity in this country was founded by Christians. Let's just use one example. The Salvation Army is one Christian community that only has 250,000 members. Remember that number. The government itself recognizes that the Salvation Army provides the highest level of welfare support after the state itself. Now, how many Muslims live in this country? Nearly 4 million, I believe. So, the Islamic community following Islam, numbering 4 million, are outpunched by one Christian group known as the Salvation Army. And that's before I add on to that everything that all the other churches do as well. He might not know it, but the Catholic Church alone does more charity work than the UN. That's before I add on all the other churches. The Christian community in India represent only 3% of the overall population. They are present far beyond their proportion to the overall population within groups working in social services, schools, nurses, charities, by 10%. The Muslim community in India is one of the largest in the world, and they are outpunched, measure for measure, proportion for proportion, by the Christian community. I go back to slavery. Why did Christians abandon slavery hundreds of years before Islam? Christians were fighting against slavery in the 8th and 9th century, whilst Muslims were practicing it full-heartedly. The Muslim slave trade is the oldest and largest and longest lasting slave trade in the history of the world. It still goes on today. It's still happening today. The Christians in 1315 under Louis X of France in 1315 said that any slave who walks into the kingdom of France is automatically a free man. In 1315, show me something like that in Islam. In 1256, Bologna banned slavery completely for everyone. Show me something like that in the same period of time. You can't, because Muhammad never gave you the precedent or the ideological means to do so. That's exploitation. Take responsibility.
First of all, you can see our Christian friend here is a liar. Why is he a liar? Because we know. It doesn't matter, you can take 3 seconds off. We know that Prophet Muhammad gave all of his slaves away, and he said, those who give your slaves away are the best among you. You do not want to exploit these people. We know how he taught people to look after those people. And again, we know that slavery in the Muslim world is not slavery in the Christian world. Slavery in the Muslim world is not beating your slave, raping your slave, abusing your slave, starving your slave. We know this. We know Christians say, oh, they used to castrize the black people. That's why there's no black men in Saudi Arabia or wherever. Then what about the women? Will they all say castrating the women? Why don't the women have children? So that just shows how much liars these Christians are. Why are they black people in America, but no black people in the Arab Muslim world, etc.? Because it was not slavery like the Americans. Okay, you mentioned the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army is a fascist organization. They do not support anyone who is not a Christian. If you want to get aid from the Salvation Army, you have to go and get it from them. The Salvation Army threatened New York to stop supplying anyone with help or benefits or anything like that if the state of New York forced them to help a couple that the Salvation Army did not want to help, that went against their Christian ideology. So when he mentions all of this, it comes with getting Christian aid comes with a catch 22. You want some Christian aid, you gotta do this. You want some Christian help, you gotta do that. Muslim aid does not come with that. Islamic aid does not come with that. Penny appeal does not come with that. It does not matter what religion you are, it does not matter what group you are. If you want help, we will help you. He tried to, again he made his crazy claims. Oh, I didn't give any reference. Again, he made some things I didn't give any references. So, I'll give you some references. Here, we know that the Christian God allows murder, rape and pillage. In Deuteronomy 20:10-14, we know the Christian God allows murder, rape and pillage. Again, in Numbers 31:7-18, we know the Christian God allows murder, rape and pillage. In Judges 21:10, where he advocates the murder and rape of innocent women and children, we know the Christian God, as long as if you're 3 years old and a woman, you are safe from the Christian God. If you are over 3 years old, the Christian God has allowed for you to be raped and abused. This is what Christianity teaches, and this is what he hides and does not allow. And he claims that Christianity stepped up to try and ban slavery. Again, these are European lies. These are European lies, and the Europeans have made these lies since the 1920s. If you actually do your history, you can actually do your education, wherever, learn about it, you can see that the European lies about Islamic slavery is based on polemics, and this is what he has used. He has used an argument that has no basis. Where are the African slaves in the Muslim world then? Where are they? I don't see any. Do you? Exactly. Why are they not there? Because it was not slavery like Christian slavery. Christian slavery that God allowed, God sanctioned. Prophet Muhammad is not God. but their God sanctioned these things. Just remember that. They put their gods, standings onto our prophet's standings and tried to say, your prophet is not as good as our God. No man is as good as God. But their Christian God, Jesus, did not even say, stop slavery. When Jesus was walking around in Rome, Rome was the capital of slavery. Everybody was being enslaved by Rome. Why did Jesus not go around saying, stop enslaving? He's trying to say our prophet, who's a man, did not stop slavery, but their God, Jesus, did not stop slavery. Again, we see the lies of these Christian missionaries. The Bible is full of it, and that is why he's such a, really good at making this up, because like I said to you already, Christians, they go and they get lessons on how to lie. And we have seen this, and it's been a very good example of it.
1 minute! Okay. I
never said that.
I'm not interrupting you, don't interrupt me.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Stop my time. Stop my time.
Okay, keep your voice down.
As long as you're not going to lie.
No, my time will start again.
Hold on. Calm down.
Don't lie.
No.
Just calm down.
You should lie.
We'll just carry on if he wants to embarrass him. So, basically he has admitted the exploitative practices within Islam and he never denied it. Notice he never came back to the hadith about rape. Never! That's exploitation. Why isn't he dealing with that? Now, let's talk about dhimmitude and the practice and the abuse of Christians. He said that Islamic charity never comes with any conditions. Well, go to the Christians of Pakistan, who when those floods happened a few years ago that affected so many people, there is many testimonies of the Christians being told by the Islamic charities that they could not receive support because they were kuffar, because they were Christians. In other words, because they were not Muslims. So he's not telling the facts. If you want to find my sources, go to Barnabas Fund, go to Open Doors, go to Christian Solidarity Worldwide. You will find the testimonies there. Furthermore, he said, where's all the African slaves? I'll tell you where they are. They're in Chad and in Mauritania and in Sudan. In Chad, slavery is still a legal practice. Muslims enslaving Muslims. In Sudan, the Arab Janjaweed, they come from the north, they raid the Christian villages of the south, and they take women and children as slaves to the north. There's plenty of evidence there, and the people that are going to free those slaves are Christian charities who go and buy the slaves from their slave masters and then set them free. I'd encourage you all to look up what Janissaries were. Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire were Christian children kidnapped from their families, indoctrinated into Islam, and then sent as a slave army back to Europe to fight against Christians. That's slavery. Now, furthermore, if we're talking about exploitative practices, he talked about rape. In Islam, you need witnesses, 4 I believe, to prove that you have been raped. How could a woman pursue justice in this way? No. The Christian faith, he says, teaches slavery. I've been to church all my life. I've never heard a single sermon about slavery being something that we can do. Perhaps one of you other Christians can come forward and tell me if you've heard a sermon in your church saying that you can take slaves.
What's the curse of habit?
But in Islam, they will teach in a mosque how to treat a slave according to Islam. Are you saying? Well, we'll deal with that shortly. We'll deal with that shortly. Go and look up some of the sermons coming out of Saudi Arabia. Go and look up some of the sermons coming out of Saudi Arabia. Now, the Christian faith teaches that there is an intrinsic dignity within us all, made in the image of God, and that is the basis upon our equality. It is the basis upon which we build a sense of justice. The Christian faith is the faith that produced the abolition of slavery. It is the faith that produced a world in which there is the possibility for women to struggle for equal rights in society. In Saudi Arabia, women have only just been given the permission to drive. Now, the fact of the matter is that Islam has dominated in Saudi Arabia for 1400 years. They are saying, we've got a heckler here who wants to take me up on point, but I would encourage you to look into his complaint against the fascist Salvation Army, because all of us here who are born in this country and know it well know that the Salvation Army help everyone without discrimination. They help everyone because the love of God is about loving all.
So if you ask Shahid, first of all,
don't seem to know much about Christian history. Curse of Ham. This is the rapper.
yeah, he's right. That's what I'm doing.
Actually, since you started to show me,
That's fine. That's fine.
Is this conclusion?
Right, so it is conclusion. That's fine.
I guess it's his last one.
Alright, so,
Well, it normally, good practice is that the one that starts isn't the one that ends, but he doesn't seem to want to be fair.
okay.
You ready for it?
I'm flip. Are you ready? I know, there's a mouse. You see, no.
Let him finish showing.
Actions are all valid on any
Problems with the country.
to mention that animals, humans, anything. It says the Prophet doesn't mention it.
I know. It's good to allow him to talk like that because it shows how disingenuous he is.
Okay. 2 more seconds. Okay, bro.
Ready?
Are you ready?
Yep. Again, we had our friend here, make all these claims, these false claims about how great Christianity is and how great Christianity has been to help people. But again, England, it was legal to rape your wife less than 20 years ago. How come? It's a Christian country, right? So, it's okay to rape your women in Christianity. What else did we have? We had slavery. Again, he seems to be forgetting that the Prophet Muhammad released all his slaves. He even mentioned, it's better to release all the slaves, do not have these slaves, let them go. And he seems to think the slavery in Islam is like what slavery is in Christianity. No, that is not the case. In Islam, it is akin to indentured servitude. That is probably the best way of explaining it. Whereas in Christianity, it is strip that person of his rights, of his freedom, of his identity. When a slave is taken in the Muslim world, do they change that slave's name to a Muslim name and strip him of his identity and his rights? No, they don't. Why? Because eventually they want to release that slave. That slave was taken as a prisoner of war, not for commercial reasons. Christianity, it was about commercial reasons. Let's take these black people, exploit them, so us rich Christians can become rich.
Of slavery in Islam.
Again, you have to understand, slavery in Islam is like indentured servitude. It is not like Christian slavery where Christians are allowed to beat those slaves, abuse those slaves, because the Bible gives them permission. Whereas in Islam, in the Quran, it tells you, if you do anything like this, what the Bible gives permission for you to do to a slave, you will be punished for it. Even the Prophet has said, those of you who are evil to those people who are unable to defend themselves, I will deal with you.
In the 21st century.
Now we know again, today Christians are exploiting everyone. Christians are bombing, raping, killing, pillaging the world over. Where is there peace in the world? There is no peace in the world. Why? Because Christianity is destroying the world. Christianity dominates the world.
Not Al-Qaeda.
Christianity was created by the enemies of humanity. The devil created Christianity, and the devil today has continued this evil warfare around the world where evil Christians exploit poor people. They give evil Christians, they give groups of people weapons so they can kill and attack other people. Evil Christians starved Irish people here. Why? Because because they did not want to. Evil Christians, there is no, first of all, you have to understand, ISIS are Taliban, etc. They're all American created institutes. You know, they follow Christian principles of exploiting and killing poor people. ISIS is more close to the Bible than it is to the Islam. It is, I already showed you with the Bible in Proverbs, and where your Christian God says, exploit the rich with alcohol.
Where's the instruction to exploit?
You show me where the instruction is in Islam to exploit people. No, you didn't. You just made the claim. Show us. Exploit poor people, right? Exploit poor people.
I'll show you in the Quran.
Show us where it says exploit poor people. And poor people.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. He asked me to show him in the Quran where it says to exploit people.
Poor people.
I'm going to show you.
Show me.
Also prohibited are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess.
Excuse me. Lie, Christian liar. Exactly.
About having sex with women who are your prisoners.
This is about war. This is about war. This is about war. This is about war.
Do you think it is justified to rape women?
No, I never said that. It doesn't say that.
What does it say?
It doesn't say that.
What does it say?
It does not say that.
Also prohibited are women already married, except those whom your hands possess.
Read the next verse.
Now, let's carry on. Let's carry on. This verse was revealed.
See, this lying Christian
when this
will not
incident.
Read the next verse. The lying Christian will not read the next verse.
He said he wanted me to show him evidence.
It shows you.
And now I'm showing him evidence.
You're a liar.
He doesn't want to listen.
Go to the next verse.
He doesn't want to listen.
Go to the next verse.
Let's look at the evidence.
Go to the next verse.
The evidence is Sahih Abu Dawud 2150.
The Christian has proven he's a liar and he's not to be trusted. Thank you. That was all I wanted to do.
The Apostle of Allah sent a military expedition.